Do you remember those videos that would come out every spring break, Girls Gone Wild, and it would have lots of college women in bikinis or not bikinis? It reminds me of much the same thing. This is liberals gone wild.
This is liberals gone wild. So there's Ted Cruz talking on his podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz, where he decides to ramble about things. Now he's rambling somehow about girls gone wild. That finds him the newest conservative on this list.
Wet ass P word. Extra large and extra hard.
You live in sexual anarchy.
Lots of college women in bikinis or not bikinis.
I wasn't ready for that sound effect. So Ted Cruz is talking with his co-host Michael Knowles, and they were talking about how Democrats are not again focusing on the real issues of the country, and apparently they're kind of like girls gone wild. Let's let them discuss this because it gets nasty.
What the hell are the Democrats thinking?
You know, Michael, it reminds me of, do you remember those videos that would come out every spring break, Girls Gone Wild, and it would have lots of college women in bikinis or not bikinis? It reminds me of much the same thing. This is liberals gone wild. This is the crazy left. This is AOC and Elizabeth Warren, thank God not in bikinis, but embracing their socialist nuttiness. I mean, it's literally like someone sat down at a bar and said, how much crazy crap can we do? Like, how far can we go to drive away not just the conservatives, that's a given, not even just the moderates, not even just the independents, but what can we do to drive away good old-fashioned liberals who are not nuts?
Yeah. I do want to clarify, Senator, just on the Girls Gone Wild point. I only ever watched that for the articles. You know, I was just really only interested, obviously.
That's funny, because you know what? In case people haven't been paying attention, there is, I think, a docuseries out about the Joe Francis, I think is the name of the guy that ran Girls Gone Wild, and the horrific nature of the things he would do to those girls, many underaged, get them drunk, trapped them in cars and rooms, raped them, attacked his wife, said he wanted to kill her. Because that's a funny thing to joke about since he's watching Girls Gone Wild for the articles. That's really funny. Anyways, there's a lot of other folks and politicians that are actually doing podcasts where they, I guess, think they're the funny or insightful. Here's a few of them. Jim Clyburn has one called Clyburn Chronicles. Dan Crenshaw's is called Hold These Truths. Matt Gaetz, Firebrand, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG Live. That's it's inventive, but apparently they want to get more. And we see athletes doing this as well. Everyone once gets in a podcast game. It's a better way to get your message out. In this case, I'm not sure if they should have had this message.
Yeah, before we go to Jessica on the main issue here, I just wanted to say about the podcast. It's interesting. A lot of Republicans, especially the extreme right wing, are doing podcasts to get their message out because they realize media is everything in politics. I can't believe the only Democrat that's caught on is Jim Clyburn of all people. Although that must be a scintillating podcast. Well, remember everybody, the corporations are always right. Make sure you vote against progressives. You don't want higher wages or health care. But anyways, so they're right about having podcasts, but they're definitely not right about what's in the podcast. I have thoughts on it too, but first, Jessica.
Yeah, I mean, at CPAC this past May, at the end of the month, we had Viktor Orban telling the attendees that the path to power is to have your own media. And then they've started these podcasts where they've got half-baked takes about what's going on in the country. And clearly, this is about gender. They wouldn't have said Girls Gone Wild if they were talking about Bernie Sanders legislation. It's clearly about AOC and Elizabeth Warren's gender. But they'll never talk about the policy proposals they've made in their substance. Conservatives tend to elect people because they amplify sentiments they agree with, just like Cenk was saying. But that's not what elected officials are for. They're supposed to be there to govern and bring substantive policy change. And they're not even having that conversation. If you want to talk about what Elizabeth Warren and AOC are doing, let's talk about bills they've sponsored, like the Pandemic Anti-Monopoly Act of 2020, preventing corporations from consolidating during the pandemic, or the Badge Transparency Act. That bill establishes framework to ensure law enforcement always has to have their identifying badge number on them. And it would be easier for them, it is for them to talk about Girls Gone Wild and make it about other things than articulate why they think that corporations should be allowed to consolidate during the pandemic, or why they think officers should be walking around without having their identification displayed. They don't want to have those conversations, and the right is perfectly fine with being entertained instead of having their representatives actually govern and improve their life materially in some way.
Yeah, and obviously what they're trying to do is sexualize them. So you're not thinking about their policy proposals, as Jessica put it, but you're thinking about their bodies. And that part is obviously gross. Almost as gross as the fact that Ted Cruz shaves the knob of his chin, but nothing else. I just noticed it as I was watching that. And it's quite like distracting and disgusting.
Why did you do that?
I know, sorry to put that in your head. But one last thing, if we're gonna talk about sex, Ted, you're the one who tweeted the incest porn that you were watching. Now, if any Democrat had done that, no Republican would ever let it go. They would mention it every time they were mentioned. So Ted, you opened the door, you wanna talk about sex, forget the fact that you were watching incest porn. Why did you think that it was a good idea to tweet it? Hey guys, everybody check out this one. It turns out the stepmom is with amazing. Look at what I found. And you want to talk about Girls Gone Wild or Stepmoms Gone Wild, Ted? Yeah, okay.
He got hacked.
Oh, of course, as always. There was hacking going on, but it wasn't computer hacking.